She was just a food delivery girl who got fired this afternoon. But tonight, her face appeared on national news, leaving the CEO speechless. Rain had been pouring down over Chicago since morning. The sky was gray, and the streets looked cold and grim. Among the pedestrians huddled under umbrellas and expensive raincoats, a slim young woman walked briskly in a soaked gray hoodie. In her hand, she tightly held a paper bag bearing the logo of a fast food chain. The heat from the food inside had fogged up the plastic lid, and every step she took splashed into the puddles on the sidewalk. Her name was Maya Collins, 22 years old, a food courier for a delivery app. No one knew she had once been a top law student. Now, her life had turned upside down, not because she had failed, but because the world could be merciless to those without power or protection. That morning, she received a delivery order to one of the tallest buildings in the city, the headquarters of Halston Holdings. Maya knew the place, a massive corporation led by a cold and sharp man named Victor Halston. She hoped to simply drop off the food and leave quickly, but unfortunately, today wasn't just another day. When she arrived in the marble lobby, she was met with indifference. The receptionist barely looked up from her computer. Maya showed the order code, but got no response. She politely knocked on the desk and explained that the meal was for someone named Mr. T, an executive assistant. "If you're in such a hurry, just go upstairs," the receptionist snapped. Maya hesitated. Normally, building staff would collect the order in the lobby, but the clock was ticking, and the system would soon flag her as late if she didn't complete the delivery in 2 minutes. Taking a deep breath, Maya headed to the elevators and rode up to the 42nd floor, the executive level. As the doors opened, she stepped out into a quiet, luxurious hallway. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a grand view of the city skyline. She felt like a speck in a world far too big. She spotted a man in a suit standing near a glass meeting room and approached him with a food bag. Just as she extended her hand, the meeting room door opened, and there he was, Victor Halston. Sharp features, designer suit, cold eyes. "What is this?" he said, his voice low and heavy with irritation. Maya flinched. I'm sorry, this is for Mr. T. I was just delivering." "You walked into the executive floor without clearance?" Victor stepped forward, glancing at the executives and clients inside the meeting room. "Is this a fast food joint or a corporate war room?" Someone tried to explain that the lobby staff had failed to pick up the delivery, but Victor didn't care. He pointed directly at Maya and spoke loud enough for the entire room to hear. "Call the delivery service. Fire her. Today." Maya froze. She couldn't speak. Her hands still held the damn paper bag. Slowly, she placed it on the table. Her cheeks flushed with humiliation. No one stood up for her. Victor turned back into the meeting room and slammed the glass door shut. Maya remained in the hallway for a moment, then turned and hurried toward the elevator, brushing rain and tears off her face. As the elevator descended, her phone vibrated. A message popped up from the delivery platform. "Your account has been suspended. A report has been filed by a top-tier client. Please contact support for further information." Maya stared at the screen. Her lips trembled, but she didn't cry. She had been rejected before. But this felt different. All she had done was deliver food. Yet she was treated like trash by a man who didn't even know her name. She exited the building and walked to the bus stop. The rain showed no sign of stopping. The bus rolled up to the curb with a heavy screech, its headlights blurred by the falling rain. Maya stepped in, her hoodie dripping water onto the rubber floor. The driver gave her a quick glance but said nothing. She tapped her transit card and moved to the very back, away from the eyes of strangers. As the city rolled past the fog windows, Maya sat silently, arms folded, the sting of humiliation still fresh in her chest. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from the app. This time, it wasn't automated. "Your case is under review. Meanwhile, your access remains restricted. We apologize for the inconvenience." Inconvenience? That word felt like a joke. She'd been yelled at, embarrassed in front of strangers, fired, and now placed under review by an app she had worked for every day, rain or shine. All because she dared walk into a building when no one downstairs would help her. When Maya finally reached her neighborhood, the contrast was stark. Gone were the gleaming skyscrapers and corporate lobbies. Now, only cracked sidewalks, flickering street lamps, and rows of rundown apartment buildings. She climbed up the narrow stairs to her third-floor unit and opened the door. The smell of damp would greeted her. From the corner of the room, a small voice called out, "Is that you, Maya?" Her younger brother, Tyler, peeked out from under a blanket on the worn-out couch. He was 10, frail, with an oxygen tank beside him that hummed softly. Maya smiled, forcing herself to look calm. "Yeah, Ty, I brought you soup." She placed the bag on the table and helped him sit up. Tyler's illness had grown worse in the last few months. She had put school on pause, left her scholarships, and worked triple shifts just to afford his medication and food. Every cent counted. And now, she had none of that. She didn't tell Tyler what happened. Not yet. Instead, she reheated the soup, sat beside him, and turned on the television to a late-night cartoon. But she couldn't focus. Her mind kept replaying the scene. Victor's voice, the glass doors, the silence of everyone watching her get fired like she didn't matter. Suddenly, from outside, the screech of tires cut through the rain. Maya stood and walked to the window. Across the street, a commotion was growing. Flashlights danced in the dark, voices yelled, and someone screamed. She ran downstairs barefoot. Across the intersection, an old woman lay on the ground, sobbing. A younger man in a hoodie was sprinting away with bag in hand. Without thinking, Maya ran. The water from the street soaked her feet instantly, but she didn't stop. The man zigzagged through trash cans and puddles, but Maya was fast. Her legs burned, her breath was heavy, but rage and instinct pushed her forward. When he tried to climb a fence, she tackled him from behind. They both hit the ground hard. The bag flew into a puddle. The man shoved her off and tried to run again, but by then, neighbors had gathered. One of them tripped him. Another called the police. The man was pinned down, shouting, cursing. Maya picked up the bag. It had old receipts, an inhaler, and a small picture of the woman with her granddaughter. It was hers, no doubt. She walked back to the old woman, who was being helped up by a bystander. Maya handed her the bag. The woman looked up at her with wide, grateful eyes. You chased him?" she asked, voice trembling. Maya just nodded, still panting. Someone nearby had filmed the whole thing. And though Maya didn't know it yet, that video would be online in less than an hour. And by morning, her name would be on every screen in the city. Maya returned home soaked, shivering, and scraped from a fall. Her palms were red, knees bruised, but adrenaline still coursed through her veins. She didn't even feel the pain. She just wanted to check on Tyler. He had fallen asleep with the television still on. Carefully, she tucked the blanket around him tighter, then tiptoed to the bathroom and washed the dirt from her hands and arms. There was blood on her elbow and a small gash on her chin, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that the woman got her bag back. That's all. Still wearing her damp hoodie, Maya collapsed onto the worn-out futon next to her brother and stared at the ceiling. Her thoughts were racing. The CO, the rain, the chase, the screaming, her name being erased from the delivery app. She felt invisible. She didn't check her phone before falling asleep. If she had, she would have seen the video already climbing its way across social media, viewed thousands of times in under an hour, then tens of thousands. Then hundreds. The video was shaky, filmed from a phone through a Rain Street car window. But it captured everything. A man in a hoodie running. A woman, small, fast, chasing him. The tackle. The bag flying. The takedown. The return. People commented in droves. Who is this girl? She didn't even hesitate. Chicago's real-life superhero. Hire her, someone. Give her a medal. She deserves more than what she's wearing. Poor girl. This the same hoodie delivery girl from downtown? By 6 a.m., local morning shows picked up the footage. The name Hoodie Hero started trending across Chicago hashtags. Still unaware of the buzz, Maya woke up to the sound of her brother coughing. She rushed to get him water, checked the oxygen tank, and gave him the rest of the soup. Her world was small. One couch, one sibling, and survival. Then her phone rang. It wasn't a number she recognized, but she answered anyway. "Hi, is this Maya Collins?" "Yes, who is this?" "This is Rebecca Lane from Channel 9 News. I know this might sound strange, but are you the woman in the video last night? The one who stopped the robbery?" Maya paused. "What video?" There was silence for a second on the other end. Then a ping. A message. Maya opened it. It was a link. She watched. Her breath caught. It was her. It really was her. She was on the screen, her soaked hoodie and messy hair unmistakable. The moment she tackled the man, the bag splashing into a puddle, the handoff to the old woman. She couldn't believe it. "We'd love to have you in our studio," the reporter continued. "You've inspired a lot of people. We want to share your story." Maya didn't know how to respond. She looked at Tyler, who had also seen the clip and was now staring at her in awe. "That's you," he whispered. "You're on the news." For the first time in days, Maya smiled. But what she didn't know yet was that this wasn't just a quick news cycle. It was just the beginning. Because someone else, far away in a glass-paneled office, would soon see her face again. And this time it would haunt him. Victor Halston stood in front of the mirror in his penthouse apartment. His suit was perfect. His cufflinks gleamed. He adjusted his collar with mechanical precision. Tonight was important. He was scheduled for a live interview on a national news program to promote Halston Holdings' new social impact campaign, an initiative he had barely read the full brief on. "Perception is leverage," he often told his PR team. "The company must look compassionate, even if we're cutting costs behind the curtain." He practiced his smile one last time before heading down to the car. The TV studio was just 10 blocks away. A private black SUV waited outside. As Victor climbed in, his assistant, Corey, handed him a tablet with notes. "Here's the talking points," Corey said. "They'll mention your donations to education grants, the Small Business Stimulus Fund, and your upcoming mentorship initiative." Victor nodded. "Perfect. Just make sure the camera gets my good side." Meanwhile, across town, Maya was sitting in the back room of Channel 9 News. Her soaked hoodie had been replaced with a borrowed blouse. A stylist had gently brushed out her hair. She looked nothing like the drenched girl from the viral video, but her eyes still held the same quiet fire. Rebecca Lane, the reporter, leaned in. "Don't worry. Just tell your story like you told us earlier. Be honest. Be you." Maya nodded slowly. "I'm not used to cameras. That's what makes you real. People love you for that." Minutes later, the countdown to the segment began. Both Victor and Maya were in different corners of the same network building, unaware of each other's presence. Victor's segment was scheduled last. He was a headliner, the man with influence, the face of corporate charity. But the producers had changed the lineup last minute. They wanted something emotional up front to hook viewers. Something raw. The segment opened with a bold title card. "The Hoodie Hero, One Young Woman's Brave Act in the Rain." Victor was in the waiting lounge when the screen lit up. He looked up from his phone lazily, not expecting much. But then he saw her. The girl from the boardroom. The delivery girl. The one he humiliated. She was sitting under studio lights, her voice calm and steady, as she told the world how she chased a thief not for attention, not for reward, but because it was the right thing to do. "I didn't even think," Maya said. She was crying. He ran. "I just followed. I guess I was angry. Not just at him, at how people treat each other. Like they're invisible." Victor's jaw clenched. The clip cut to the shaky phone footage. The tackle. The crowd. The return. Then it went back to Maya. The reporter asked, "Is it true you were fired the same day?" Maya hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. I was delivering food to a corporate office. I went upstairs because no one in the lobby would help. A man yelled at me. I got reported. I lost my job." She never said Victor's name. She didn't have to. Everyone in the office remembered who had fired the girl. Victor stared at the screen. Silence filled the lounge. Corey was frozen next to him, face pale. That's her." Corey asked. Victor didn't respond. The segment ended with thunderous applause from the studio crew. Online, the video was already spreading faster than anything the network had aired all month. Victor was called to makeup, but for the first time in his career, he declined. "I'm not going on tonight," he muttered. "But, sir, they're expecting you." Victor stood, loosened his tie, and walked toward the exit without looking back. On every screen in the building, Maya's face glowed under the studio lights. And in the reflection of every glass wall he passed, Victor saw not a success, but his mistake. Victor Halston didn't sleep that night. He lay on his $8,000 mattress, staring at the ceiling, still wearing his undone tie and dress shirt. The echo of Maya's voice repeated in his mind like a haunting melody. "I guess I was angry. Not just at him, at how people treat each other, like they're invisible." It wasn't just the words. It was her expression. Calm, honest, steady, and the world believed her, because everything about her was real, unlike the branding he'd spent years polishing. By morning, the headlines were everywhere. The hoodie hero, Maya Collins, saved the day. Delivery girl no more, meet Chicago street hero. She was fired. Now she's famous. And by 9 a.m., the PR nightmare began. Emails flooded the corporate inbox. Calls poured into reception. People on social media started connecting dots. A few ex-employees commented anonymously online. "Halston fired her? Not surprised. That's the kind of place it is. I used to work there. They treat support staff like trash." The CEO's silence speaks volumes. The company's official account posted a brief message. "We're aware of the situation involving Ms. Maya Collins and are looking into it." But it was too late. By noon, sponsors began calling Victor's executive assistant, expressing concern. A scheduled partnership announcement with a tech accelerator was abruptly canceled. One investor emailed Victor directly. "This isn't just a PR issue. It's an integrity issue. Fix it. Fast." Victor stared at the message on his phone, unmoving. For the first time, he felt the weight of decision not as a calculated cost, but as something heavier, something human. Across town, Maya was sitting at a small coffee shop, sipping hot tea that someone else had bought for her. People had started to recognize her. A barista gave her a free muffin. A couple of teenage girls asked for selfies. A news anchor from a competing channel sent her a DM, asking for an exclusive interview. Maya didn't understand the frenzy. She didn't want fame. All she wanted was to go back to taking care of her brother, to maybe, just maybe, return to law school one day. Her phone vibrated again. Unknown number. She hesitated, then picked it up. "Hello?" A deep voice responded. "Maya, this is Victor Halston." Silence. She didn't speak. Not immediately, but her breathing changed, sharpened. I saw the interview," he continued. I owe you an apology." Maya exhaled slowly. Her voice was firm, but even. "You don't owe me anything." "I do," Victor said. "I acted poorly. I judged you without knowing anything. I shouldn't have treated you that way." There was a long pause. Then Maya said, "You didn't see me." "Not really. You saw a delivery girl and thought that meant I didn't matter." Victor swallowed hard. "I want to make it right, however I can." Maya didn't answer right away. She looked around the cafe, her fingers tracing the edge of her cup. Finally, she said, "Then see me now, not as a charity case, not as a headline, just as a person who works hard, who still believes people deserve respect." And she hung up. Victor lowered his phone. In that moment, he realized something the markets had never taught him, that the greatest cost of silence was not reputation. It was missing the chance to do the right thing when it mattered most. The next morning, Maya stood on the balcony of her apartment, watching the early sun paint golden streaks over the rooftops. Tyler was still asleep, his breathing calm for once. For the first time in what felt like months, there was no tightness in her chest, no dread about the day ahead. Her phone buzzed again. It wasn't another interview request. Not this time. It was an email from a University of Illinois College of Law. Subject: urgent academic reinstatement inquiry. She opened it, confused. The message read, "Dear Ms. Collins, We came across your story in the news and were deeply moved. After a brief review of your prior academic record, we would like to offer you an opportunity to reinstate your admission with a full scholarship under our public service initiative effective immediately. If you are interested, please contact our office no later than Friday. Her hand trembled. She had tried so hard to leave that dream behind. Law school had become a distant star, something she once chased but could no longer afford to reach. And now, it was being offered back to her, no strings attached, on her own terms. She forwarded the email to her old mentor, Professor Gale, without even thinking. Then, moments later, another buzz, a new message from the CEO's office. This time, not from Victor, from his head of human resources. We are reaching out on behalf of Halston Holdings with a formal apology and a proposal. We would like to invite you to join a newly launched community advisory panel focused on improving workplace equity and frontline employee treatment. Compensation will be provided, travel and housing accommodations included. Maya stared at the screen, stunned. Victor hadn't just made a phone call. He was taking action. Or at least, someone at the company was trying to. Part of her wanted to delete the message. Another part whispered, "You asked him to see you." She saved it for later. Moments after, the doorbell rang. It was a young woman in jeans and a flannel shirt, holding a large paper bag. "Maya Collins?" she asked. Maya nodded. "I work at Helping Hands Pantry downtown. Someone made a large anonymous donation last night and asked us to send this to you. Groceries. And there's a card." She handed it over, smiled, and walked away before Maya could say anything. Inside the bag were fresh fruits, vegetables, a rotisserie chicken, pasta, canned goods, and a bottle of medicine for Tyler that she'd been trying to save up for. The card was unsigned. It just read, "Not for charity. For strength. A friend." She knew who it was from. The story of Maya Collins had now become bigger than one viral video. She was becoming a symbol. And with that came doors that once slammed in her face, now cautiously creaking open. Still, she didn't feel like a hero. She felt like a girl who had made one choice in a moment of clarity, who had stood up because no one else did. And yet, that was enough. That night, Channel 9 News aired a follow-up segment. This time, Maya was shown speaking at a local community center, answering questions from kids who looked up to her like she was a Marvel character. A little girl with braids raised her hand and asked, "Are you going to be on TV forever now?" Maya smiled. "I don't know. I'm not chasing the camera. I'm chasing justice." And somewhere in a corporate suite with the lights dimmed low, Victor Halston watched the screen again. This time, he didn't flinch. He listened. The city of Chicago, known for its steel towers and tough skin, had always moved too fast to notice people like Maya Collins. But now, for the first time, it paused. On trains and offices, at bus stops, people talked about her. "Did you see that girl who stopped a robbery? She used to deliver to my building. Sweetest kid. My daughter keeps saying she wants to be like Maya." And it wasn't just talk. Something was shifting. The mayor's office posted a statement praising Maya's bravery. A city council member proposed a resolution recognizing acts of uncommon civic courage in her name. A muralist in the South Loop painted a giant image of Maya in her hoodie, one hand reaching down to lift another. Everywhere she turned, people wanted her voice, her thoughts, her face. But Maya wasn't chasing any of that. She spent most of her time with Tyler, organizing the paperwork for school and, quietly, writing. Late one night, she opened her laptop and began typing an essay titled "The Power of Being Seen." It was part reflection, part raw account of what it feels like to be invisible in a world obsessed with titles, money, and status. She submitted it to a popular online journal the next morning. By sunset, it had gone viral. Readers flooded the comment section with stories of their own. People ignored at work, dismissed in hospitals, silenced in classrooms. Maya had touched a nerve, and the city wasn't just listening anymore. It was responding. At Halston Holdings, the atmosphere had shifted. Victor's board of directors convened an emergency meeting, not to remove him, but to challenge him. Some members were furious about the damage. Others saw an opportunity. "If we don't act now, one of them said. We lose public trust. And that was how the new initiative began. They call it the Visibility Project, a company-wide program to hear from lower-level staff, gig workers, and everyday employees about how corporate policies affected them. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even Victor's idea. But he allowed it, quietly, silently, and in every boardroom meeting since. There was now a new seat at the table, not for another executive, but for someone like Maya. One morning, as Maya waited outside Tyler's clinic, a young woman in a delivery uniform nervously approached her. Are you Maya? Maya smiled. Yeah, that's me. The girl fumbled in her pocket, pulled out a folded receipt. I keep this with me. It's from the day I got written up for being too slow. I almost quit, but then I saw your video. I didn't quit. I'm still here. Maya took the receipt, glanced at it, and handed it back. Keep it, she said. Let it remind you, you matter, even when they act like you don't. The girl nodded, holding back tears. And for a moment, Maya didn't feel like a viral clip or a face on a mural. She felt like herself. Real, grounded, and seen. A month had passed since the night Maya's name first lit up the news. One chilly Monday morning, she received an unexpected envelope in her mailbox. No sender, no logo, just her name, handwritten in a tidy script. Inside was a formal-looking letter. Ms. Collins, on behalf of Halston Holdings, we would like to invite you to participate in our first public roundtable discussion for the Visibility Project. We are assembling voices from across the city to help shape future workplace policies. Your presence would be an honor. Maya didn't answer right away. The letter felt heavy, not just in weight, but in memory. She stared at the company name, Halston Holdings, the place where she had been fired, embarrassed, humiliated, and yet now they wanted her voice. She took a day to think. Then, too, on the 3rd, she folded the letter neatly, tucked it into her backpack, and boarded a bus to downtown. The building hadn't changed. Still tall, still cold, still guarded by the same revolving glass doors and polished marble floors. But something was different. Her. Maya walked in head high and approached the receptionist, the same woman as before. But this time, the woman stood when she saw her, eyes wide. Maya, welcome. They're expecting you. Maya nodded silently and stepped toward the elevators. She pressed a button. Nothing. The elevator lights blinked, then died. A maintenance worker nearby groaned. Sorry, folks. Service just went down. Might take an hour. Someone behind Maya's side. Typical. The security guard offered an apologetic shrug. Stairs are that way if you're in a hurry. Maya looked down the hallway. The staircase loomed like a memory. She had taken those very stairs before, fighting the timer on a delivery app, a soak bag in her hand, rain dripping from her sleeves, only to be yelled at. Today, she carried nothing, just her voice. Step by step, she climbed 42 floors. No deadline, no fear, just determination. At the top, her legs aching but steady, she pushed through the door into the executive level. A young woman in a blazer greeted her. Ms. Collins? Right this way, please. The boardroom was full. Executives, advisors, city advocates, media liaisons. At the head of the table, Victor Halston sat straight, expression unreadable. He stood as she entered. Thank you for coming, Maya, he said quietly. She looked around. The same glossy windows, the same long table. But now, no one looked through her. They looked at her. A seat had been left open. Maya took it. The meeting began. She didn't speak first. She listened, measured the room, took notes. Then, when someone mentioned improving employee dignity at the corporate level, the moderator turned to her. Maya, any thoughts? She looked up. Yes, she said. Start by fixing how you listen. A ripple of surprise moved through the room. She continued. People don't just quit because of money. They quit because they're unseen, disrespected, replaced. If you want change, it has to start with how you see people who aren't in this room. Victor didn't interrupt. Neither did anyone else. She wasn't delivering a meal this time. She was delivering truth, and no one dared throw it away. Weeks passed. The buzz began to soften. Maya's face no longer dominated news tickers. The hashtag started to slow. The mural in the South Loop gathered dust, tagged over with new colors and new slogans. Social media moved on, as it always did, but Maya stayed steady. She had never asked to go viral. She hadn't wanted to become a symbol or a headline. And now, as the world's attention shifted, she found peace in the quiet. Law school had officially welcomed her back. Every morning, she sat in the front row of her constitutional law class, eyes focused, notebook open, mind sharp. She knew what it meant to fight from the margins. Now she was learning how to do it with precision. Tyler, meanwhile, had started middle school again after long absence. He had new medicine, better equipment, and most importantly, a sense of pride in his sister. "You're not just in the books now," he told her one evening. "You're the reason some people are writing better ones." She smiled, gently ruffling his hair. "Let's make sure I pass finals first, okay?" Back at Halston Holdings, changes were underway. The Visibility Project had grown beyond what anyone expected. Employees now had regular access to decision-makers through rotating panels. A quarterly forum was created where janitors, interns, and frontline workers could directly address board members. And on the 50th floor, a quiet policy shift removed the no-entry clause for non-staff visitors. "Delivery workers," it read, "must be received with the same professionalism and respect as all other guests." Victor Halston didn't attend every meeting, but he read every memo, quietly approved every proposal that aligned with the new tone. Some called it guilt, others growth. He didn't argue. One afternoon, he stepped into a university bookstore. He wore sunglasses and a plain coat. In his hand, a small note scribbled with the name of a book Maya had mentioned the panel weeks earlier, Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. As he approached the register, a student glanced at him. "Wait, aren't you?" Victor raised a hand with a faint smile. "Just someone trying to listen better." The student blinked, then nodded. "Cool." At the university library, Maya sat alone by the window, laptop open, headphones in. She was reviewing a case study on wrongful terminations and labor protections. A text came in. "Unknown number. You're not trending anymore. That's when the real work begins. Proud of you." No name attached. She didn't need one. Maya looked out the window, watching students rush between classes, coffee cups in hand, arms full of books. None of them knew what she'd been through. Most never would. And that was okay, because her story wasn't written for headlines. It was built for something deeper, built in moments no one filmed. Moments like climbing 42 flights of stairs, like speaking truth in a room full of suits, like choosing to forgive without forgetting. She closed her laptop, tucked it into her bag, and stood. There were still papers to write, lectures to attend, a life to live, and maybe someday a courtroom where she'd stand again, not as a delivery girl, not as a headline, but as an advocate for people who knew what it meant to be overlooked and were finally ready to be seen. The leaves had turned amber and gold, and the crisp air hinted that winter wasn't far behind. Inside the university's moot court auditorium, Maya stood before a panel of professors and practicing attorneys. It was her first mock trial since returning to law school. The room was packed with students. Nerves buzzed in her chest, but her voice remained calm. She argued a case involving wrongful dismissal, something she knew not just from textbooks, but from memory. Her arguments were sharp, her citations flawless. When the judge called time, she returned to her seat to a quiet ripple of admiration. After the session ended, Maya stepped outside to catch her breath. She leaned against a railing, watching students trickle by. Then she saw him. At first, she thought her mind was playing tricks. But there, near the steps leading to the main quad, stood Victor Halston. No suit, no entourage. Just him, alone. She froze for a second. Part of her wanted to turn around. Another part stayed rooted. Victor spotted her and raised a hand in a calm wave. Cautiously, Maya walked over. "Didn't think this was your kind of place," she said. He chuckled softly. "It wasn't. Not until recently." There was a beat of silence. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a thin folder. "I'm speaking at a private lecture tomorrow," he said, "to first-year business students. About failure." "Interesting choice of speaker," Maya replied. Victor gave a faint smile. "They asked me what I've learned in the last 6 months. And I realize most of it came from people who don't sit at my table." He handed her the folder. "Inside is a draft of a new scholarship initiative. For students like you, those who were forced to leave school due to economic or family hardship, full tuition, living stipends, no PR strings." Maya hesitated. He continued, "It's being funded anonymously, but I wanted you to see it first." She opened the folder. Inside, under the name of the program, she saw something unexpected. The Maya Collins Equity Scholarship. Her breath caught. She looked up at him. "I didn't agree to this." "I know," Victor said. "That's why I'm asking now. You don't have to say yes, but I hope you'll let us do it." She studied his face. Not for guilt, not for performance, but for sincerity. And this time, she saw it. Not just the man who once humiliated her, but the man who had chosen to grow. She closed the folder and held it against her chest. "I'll think about it," she said quietly. Victor nodded. "That's all I ask." He started to turn, then paused. "By the way," he added, glancing at the law building, "I watched your argument today. You didn't just win the case. You held the room." Maya raised an eyebrow. "You spying on me now?" He smirked. "No, just listening better." And with that, he walked away. Maya stood in place for a while, the wind tugging gently at her coat. Then she looked down at the folder again. It didn't erase the past, but maybe, just maybe, it could rewrite the future. The envelope was small, sealed with a neat strip of tape, and sat quietly on the kitchen table next to a half-eaten bowl of cereal. Maya had returned home late after reviewing cases with her study group. Her brain was full of legal arguments and judicial precedents. But the moment she saw the envelope with her name scrawled in a familiar, uneven handwriting, her heart softened. Tyler. She peeled it open gently and unfolded a single sheet of lined notebook paper. At the top, in bold pencil strokes, were the words, "For my sister, Maya." She smiled. Then read, "Dear Maya, I know you don't like surprises, but I wanted to write you this anyway. I was supposed to write a paper in school about someone who changed the world. Everyone else picked presidents and astronauts. I picked you. I didn't tell anyone what happened to you last year. Not about the job, or the rain, or the bad guy you stopped. I just said you were brave and smart. And when you had nothing, you still gave everything. That's what heroes do, right? Some kid said it wasn't fair, that you got lucky, that someone like you doesn't belong on TV or in a book. But I told them, my sister doesn't need to be famous to matter. She already mattered when no one was watching. I miss when we used to play word games and draw superheroes. I know you've been busy. I know school is hard. But I see you, Maya. And when I grow up, I want to be like you. Not because of the news stories, because of the quiet stuff. Like how you always split your sandwich with me, or stayed awake when I was scared, or carried me down 3 flights of stairs when the elevator broke. That's the stuff no one sees. But I do. Love, Tyler." Maya sat in silence for a long time, the letter trembling slightly in her hand. This was the moment, not the courtroom, not the panel, not the broadcast, but this letter, these words, from the one person who mattered most. She pressed the paper to her chest and closed her eyes. Everything she had fought for, every tear, every insult, every time she had chosen dignity over comfort, it had built this moment. A boy who believed in someone without a title, without wealth, without a spotlight, just a sister, trying, always trying. Later that night, she framed the letter and placed it beside her law books. Because long after the stories faded, long after the credits rolled, this would be her truth. The studio lights were softer this time. No crowd, no buzzing control room. Just a camera, 2 chairs, and a quiet voice preparing questions off to the side. It was Channel 9 again, the same station that had aired Maya's first interview nearly a year ago. But this wasn't prime time. This was for a special documentary series titled Echoes of Change, highlighting people whose actions had rippled beyond a single moment. Maya almost didn't accept. She no longer needed the attention. The hype had faded. She was focused on her studies, her home, and her future. But when the producer told her this segment would be shown in high schools across the state to teach courage, humility, and action, she agreed, as long as it was honest. She sat on the edge of the gray armchair, hands folded in her lap. The interviewer, a soft-spoken woman named Elise, smiled gently from the other seat. "Do you remember what you were thinking?" she asked. "When you ran after that man, Lorraine?" Maya tilted her head. "Thinking? I wasn't," she said quietly. "I wasn't thinking. I just moved." "Why?" "Because someone needed help. Because I was angry and tired. Not just of him, but of being small, of being overlooked." Elise nodded slowly. "You said once that being seen was more powerful than being famous. Do you still believe that?" Maya's eyes didn't waver. More than ever, she glanced briefly toward the lens. "There's a difference between being looked at and being seen. I lived most of my life invisible. But real visibility isn't about attention. It's about value. It's about someone looking at you and saying, 'You matter, even when you're not useful to me.'" Elise paused, letting the silence stretch, the words settle. "And what would you say," she asked, "to someone right now, watching this, who feels invisible too?" Maya exhaled slowly. "I'd say your value doesn't shrink just because someone fails to notice it. You carry worth whether or not it's ever acknowledged. The world moves fast, but that doesn't mean you have to disappear to keep up." She leaned forward. "You don't need a headline. You don't need a viral clip. Sometimes the loudest change starts in the quietest moments, like standing up, like saying no more, like showing up again, even after they push you out." Elise blinked, clearly moved. Behind the camera, the crew remained still. No one said cut. No one rushed. Because for a brief moment, in a small studio with dim lights, the entire room listened, not just to Maya's voice, but to the echo of everyone she stood for. It was a cold morning in early spring when the first group of recipients gathered in the lobby of the University of Illinois Law Building. 7 students. Different backgrounds. Different stories. But one thing in common. Each had been forced to put their education on hold due to circumstances far beyond their control. They didn't know one another. Not yet. Some came from small towns. Some had worked warehouse jobs. One had aged out of foster care. Another had supported a sick parent through night shifts and missed lectures. But now, all of them were standing under the same arched ceiling, holding the same acceptance packet. Each page bore the name, the Maya Collins Equity Scholarship. At first, some thought the name was coincidence. Then one girl, a sharp-eyed first-year named Lena, spoke up. "Is this that Maya? You mean the girl who stopped that guy downtown? Didn't she get fired from somewhere? She's in law school now, right?" Before the conversation could go further, the elevator doors opened, and Maya stepped out, not with a camera crew, not with a spotlight, just her, wearing a simple blazer, a folder under one arm, and that same calm presence that had once silenced the corporate boardroom. Every head turned. She walked to the center of the group, smiled, and said, "Welcome." The room fell quiet. "You don't need to know my story," she continued. "What matters is yours. Each of you fought to be here. You've worked, sacrificed, endured, and no one handed you a seat at this table. You earned it." She looked at them one by one. "But from today forward, you don't have to fight alone." She handed out the folders, one by one. Inside were class schedules, contact sheets, mentor assignments, and letters, handwritten by Maya herself, tailored to each student's unique background. They weren't generic words. They were personal. To Lena, "Don't shrink your voice to fit the room. Make the room grow around your voice." To Jamal, "Your father's legacy doesn't end in silence. Speak with his strength." To Danny, you are not what you had to survive. You are what you're building now. By the time she reached the final folder, most of the students were blinking fast, looking down, hiding smiles, hiding tears. Maya paused. She didn't want applause. She didn't want thanks. She just wanted them to believe they belonged. Later that day, she met with the university's scholarship board. They had expected her to pose for a few photos, perhaps give a quote to the alumni newsletter. Instead, Maya handed them a proposal. "I'd like to expand the scholarship," she said, "not just for law students. For healthcare, education, tech, anywhere systemic barriers keep brilliant minds out." The board chair raised an eyebrow. "You realize what you're asking, right? This isn't small." "I'm not interested in small," she said. The chair leaned back. "And the name? You want to keep your name on it." Maya thought for a moment, then smiled. "No, call it the Scene Initiative. Let it belong to everyone who felt invisible and rose anyway." The courtroom smelled faintly of wood polish and nerves. It wasn't Maya's first time here. Not anymore. She had sat through mock trials, internships, clerk work, and now, as a certified legal intern, she was preparing for her very first real-life courtroom appearance under the supervision of a licensed attorney. The stakes were low on paper, a labor dispute between a small bakery and a former employee. But for Maya, it was more than that. The worker, Elena Morales, was a single mother who'd been fired after asking for time off to care for her sick son. She had no money for a lawyer. She came to the community legal clinic, where Maya had been volunteering for months. Maya had reviewed the documents herself. She saw the familiar pattern: the dismissal, the silence, the erasure of dignity behind words like policy and protocol. And she knew this case was hers to fight. In the gallery, Professor Gale sat quietly. Tyler, too, older now, stronger, scribbling something in a notebook. He had insisted on being there for her first real trial. Even Victor Halston had come. He didn't sit in front, just slipped into the back row shortly after proceedings began, a coat over his lap, no announcement, no handshake. He was there to listen, not as a benefactor, but as a man following through. Maya stood confidently at the plaintiff's table. Her voice was steady, her questions precise. She addressed the judge with respect, the opposing counsel with control. She outlined how policies had been used to punish rather than protect, how corporate silence became complicit harm. And then she said something that quieted the room. "I understand what it's like to lose a job, not because you did something wrong, but because someone in power decided your existence was inconvenient." No one objected, not because they agreed with her, but because the weight of her words filled every space between the walls. When it was over, the judge nodded slowly and recessed for deliberation. Maya sat down, exhaled, and closed her binder. She had done it, not just argued a case, but lived one. Outside, the air smelled of late spring, fresh, bright, and full of something she hadn't felt in a long time: continuity. Victor approached her as she stood alone near the steps. "I just wanted to say," he began, "you were extraordinary." She glanced at him. "I wasn't aiming for extraordinary," she said. He nodded. "That's why you were." They stood there in silence, surrounded by the hum of the city. Then Maya turned toward him, a small smile at the edge of her lips. "This doesn't make us even, you know." "I know, but it makes us human." He chuckled. "That's a good place to start." She walked away without fanfare, her shadow stretching long across the sidewalk. And for the first time, Victor Halston didn't feel like the most important person in the room. He felt grateful that someone had once challenged him to see, and that now he did. Years passed. The world kept spinning faster than ever. New headlines came. New faces rose. But one name remained quietly etched into the corners of lives forever changed, not because it was shouted from rooftops, but because it lingered where it mattered most. Maya Collins. She never became a politician, never signed to the publisher, never hired a manager or sold her story. Instead, she built a life rooted in quiet impact. By the time she turned 30, she had argued over 100 cases, most of them pro bono. Her name became a whisper of hope among single mothers, immigrant workers, janitors, and delivery drivers who couldn't afford to be seen by the system. She didn't promise miracles, but she promised effort, presence, respect. At the edge of the South Loop, the mural of her hoodie-clad figure still stood, refreshed every year by local artists. New tags were added, quotes from her cases, signatures of those she defended. Underneath her painted silhouette were 3 simple words. She showed up at the university. The SEEN initiative had grown to span 6 schools and helped over 300 students complete their education. The program expanded into mentorship, legal support, and mental health care, led not by executives, but by those it served. On its 10th anniversary, a small ceremony was held in a quiet auditorium. Maya didn't want to attend, but Tyler insisted. She arrived just before it began, slipping into the back row. No red carpet, no speech, just a warm welcome and a few handshakes. One by one, students came to the podium to speak. They didn't just thank her, they told their stories. How they had once felt invisible, and how, because of a chance someone gave them, they now stood on their own. A young woman named Sonia read aloud a letter. It wasn't hers. It was Tyler's, the one he wrote all those years ago, the one Maya had framed beside her law books. You already mattered when no one was watching. Maya's throat tightened. She looked at her brother, now a college graduate, healthy, tall, and smiling proudly in the front row. When the applause came, Maya didn't stand. She simply closed her eyes, not to escape, but to remember. Rain falling on concrete, the weight of a paper bag, the sting of dismissal, the feel of cold stair railings beneath her palms, and the strength it took to climb when no one believed she could. She never needed applause. She just needed one person to believe. And when no one did, she chose to believe in herself. That was a legacy, not a name in lights, but a light in the lives of others. Seen, heard, lifted, because one woman showed up, even when the world told her not to.